Hey there, Prairie Plant Girl here. Well, if you recall a few videos ago, I had some potatoes that I potted up with seed potatoes of the purple Caribe potato. And then I had taken a few extras that I didn't quite have room for yet, and I just put them in these small pots to get started while I waited for some other potatoes to mature, so I could, once I harvested those, I could put these in their place. The other buckets of potatoes are taking way longer than I normally expect for them to mature and finish out and die back. And these have been sitting in these little pots too long, so I want to get them planted. And conveniently, my green beans aren't growing. I have one green bean plant growing here. I think you can see it. So I decided I'm just going to put these potatoes that I have left into this row here, and they'll do fine here. They'll work well. They'll be fine beside the peas that are next to them, and that'll get them planted so they have a chance to actually grow and develop tubers before it's too late. So I did get a couple of the pots that I potted up planted into some buckets a few weeks ago. I didn't show that, so I'll show those to you. So these are some that were in small pots, and then I just decided I just needed to get some of them planted out. So I had this big metal bin here. There's two seedlings that I put in there, and then there's one each in these three smaller pots, and they're doing well. This one's just starting to get going, but I'm happy with those. And then the rest are just going to go in this row here. So it's going to be pretty much standard for what I usually do for planting my potatoes. So I have some bone meal. I'll dig a hole, put some bone meal in it, and I'll plunk these in. But I just wanted to kind of show you what I'm doing with these potatoes that I started in these little starter pots, so you can kind of follow along with them and see how they go. Now, they've been in here about 2 weeks longer than I would have liked. So hopefully they haven't started developing too many tubers on them, because they don't have much room here. They won't do much, and I want to get them planted before they get too serious about doing that and decide that's all the space they are going to have. So we don't need this green bean sign anymore. I'll have to change that out. There's an emitter right here on this drip tube, so it's a good spot to put potato. And I'll just dig out a nice hole. The soil here is really loose, so I can just easily dig it out by hand. And I don't need to really loosen around too much. The potatoes will be able to develop under there quite easily. A little bone meal in and around the hole here, and that'll just give them a good nutrition to develop. So let's see what's happening in here. So we have roots, but they haven't started to produce tubers yet. So I'll try and plant them down slightly deeper than they were in the pots, more just to get the plants standing up and looking better. I don't normally hill my potatoes, but if I was going to be hilling them, it would just be to keep any potatoes that were starting to pop up above the ground covered, so they weren't getting caught in the sun. They won't really develop a bunch of tubers even if you hill them up really high. It's just to keep the potatoes covered is why you would hill these shorter season potatoes. So like I said, these are purple Caribe, and I'll space them out, I think about a 1.5 feet, maybe every foot, and that'll be fine for them. And they're about a kind of a mid-season kind of maturation. They're one of my favorite potatoes to grow. They are a very bright purple skin with a very, very white flesh, and I find them to be a really creamy, kind of waxy potato, which we really like. We eat a lot of mashed potatoes and boiled potatoes and over the winter, so these are ones that I like to have, and they store well, and then that's how we eat our potatoes a lot in the winter, so they're perfect for that. So this one looks like it hasn't really grown, and in fact I almost didn't pick this pot up. It was in my greenhouse with the rest. Then I noticed there are little sprouts coming, so we'll plant it, and it's just a little bit behind. I had a few really small pieces that I planted, so I suspect this is one of them. There's just a little bit of a root here. I don't even know how you see it. Another little root over there. Mostly this is almost loose soil, so try and get it down without breaking those roots. And I'm going to cover up even those tiny sprouts, and they'll eventually make their way up out of the ground here and into a potato plant. So about here is next. So just putting them in these little pots is just a little trick. Like I live in Saskatchewan, Canada. We have a pretty short growing season here. And so if you want to do multiple plantings of potatoes and don't have a ton of space for potatoes, then this is something you can do to just kind of get potatoes started while you're waiting for something else in your garden to mature before you plant them out and have the space to put them in. It just gives a little bit of a jump start on your potato production. So again, this one has some really nice roots coming there, nice tall sprouts. I'll just get them put in there because they're getting to that point now where they're going to start forming tubers after those first like 30 days or so of just kind of sprouting and growing and putting down roots. They're going to start wanting to get their tubers formed and started. They'll start as just little nubs, and then as they mature and continue to grow, they'll get bigger until the plant flowers and dies back, and then that's the point where your potatoes should be ready to harvest. Now once the plant flowers, which they don't always set flowers, but usually they will, and then usually you have some small little what you call baby or new potatoes, and you can do what a lot of people will refer to as stealing potatoes. You just kind of scrape some of the soil away from the edge of your plant, and you can just pluck a few of those new baby potatoes off the plant, leaving the rest of the root system and plant intact to continue growing and getting larger, and just have some of those nice new potatoes to enjoy fresh. This one has lots of stems coming off it. There's like six stems, it looks like. So I don't know if this is a bigger piece of potato. Lots of roots coming, but again, no tubers forming yet, so that's good. I was getting a little worried that they were going to start wanting to form tubers in these little pots. One left here. I just used fresh fertilizer in my garden beds 2 days ago. Boy, can you smell it. It's really good for the soil and the plants, but man, it has an odor to it. Okay. Last plant here. There's roots coming out the bottom. Oh, this is the one with the most roots on it yet. Very full. Here's the potato piece that I planted, so it's a larger piece by the looks of things on this one. It doesn't look like there's any tubers trying to form it. I'm going to break these roots up just a hair. It was quite busy growing roots in here. Okay, so we'll try and get that down without breaking the stems or anything. Get it buried back in. That's awesome. I was able to find some space to get those potatoes planted, even though the plants I had planned to replace these with are not cooperating for me. But I have these all put in here, 5 plants, and I'll have a really good harvest. I usually get a better harvest in these raised beds than I do in pots anyways, so considering these are some potatoes I want to use for storage through the winter, it's probably better to get them in a space like this. So it's not always a bad thing when a crop doesn't produce for you, because the green beans didn't work out. Potatoes are going in their place. Yeah, I could have reseeded the green beans, but we'll get more use out of the potatoes in the end anyway. I'll show you where the ones that I did in the video in the larger pots are going. So here's the pots I did in that original video where I was planting the purple Prairie, where I got some in pots. And this one was sprouting, and then I covered it up with some rough compost. I was sure there were sprouts, and now I'm not seeing any. So I may need to dig some of this off and just see what's going on. I thought it had been sprouting. I'm not seeing them now. I should have brought my gloves over. But the other three are doing really well. Maybe this wasn't sprouting before. I'm down to the soil now and I don't see any sprouts. So I've dug all the extra mulch layer down to, this is the soil that I had filled this container with, and there's zero sign of any sprouting happening anywhere in here. So I guess it hadn't been sprouting when I put the mulch on. I must have just mulched it when I mulched the rest. And there's nothing coming up in here, so I'm just going to leave this very thin layer of mulch on for now. It's quite wet too, so hopefully the potatoes didn't rot off in there. It's so wet. But we'll just leave it like this for a week and see what happened, and if nothing's sprouted by then, I might have to go digging deeper and investigate. But hopefully there's something comes up now that they have a bit more space in there. Hopefully it'll dry out a little bit more without that big layer of mulch on. That'll be the end for potato planting today. It's hot out. It's good to get these in the ground and out of their little pots. And I'll bring you along when it's time to harvest. Thanks for watching. Bye.